Hello, my name is David Lincoln, and you are watching the Short Vol Show live on YouTube, broadcasting to you from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, home of the Pilgrims, as we wind up the holiday season here on Cape Cod and the tourists start to head back to home. We look towards the fall, but as you and I know, none of that stuff matters. What matters is, of course, the VIX and Contango. Sorry, I got a little excited and lost my earphone there. Look, I messed up something yesterday, so I just want to correct that real quick. I was talking about my buddy Brent's YouTube channel, Money Talk. I think I said Market Watch or Market Talk or something wrong. Anyways, like I said, I never claimed to be the brightest guy in the room. And so apologies for that. Money Talk is the name of the site. I have it highlighted here behind me. Check it out. This is a guy who's a lot, he's basically, if I'm playing checkers with volatility, he's playing chess. So that's just kind of the way it is. And I rely on him to help me out with some of the more complicated issues and concepts. So check out Money Talk, and also go there and get the link to his website and sign up for the daily blog and newsletter. He has a few different strategies, and just to kind of go over the most basic concept of it, it's, as far as I understand it, it's basically like based on certain, as the market changes, you're going to be switching from some short volatility strategies to getting long gold and bonds. It's that kind of a strategy where, well, one of his strategies is like that. But anyways, check his stuff out because he can explain it a lot better than I can when you get a chance. All right, so this morning it was kind of like, what is it going to take for this stuff to crack? You know, the market goes up, VIX goes up. Market goes down, VIX really goes up. And it just felt like, you know, it was up. We were up 5-7 points in the E-minis, and this thing, VIX was still positive. And it's like, what is it going to take for this VIX to go down? Now, if you've watched me for a little while, you know that I'm a follower of the band The Grateful Dead. And most people say that the Grateful Dead's production in songs and whatnot kind of fell off towards the end. Jerry Garcia died in 1995, thus sort of dissolving the band. Now, Bob Weir has taken on the mantle and he keeps playing the old music, and he's got this great Dead and Company band on the road. But as far as like producing, actually composing songs, the last great song composed by Robert Hunter, who is pretty much a lyricist that worked with Jerry. Robert Hunter worked with Jerry as a lyricist, and John Perry Barlow pretty much worked with Bobby as a lyricist. That's kind of how it worked most of the time. But anyways, the last great song by Jerry Garcia was a song called The Days Between. And like I said, a lot of hardcore people kind of tuned the Dead out after like the 80s, but this was a beautiful, haunting song called The Days Between. And it kind of sums up the way the volatility game works in that, we get headlines about the VIX spiking, and you'll hear all these people talking about the VIX spiking, but that's not when we make our money. We make our money in the days between, when nothing's really going on and stuff just starts to leak lower as far as the VIX goes. And the question for us is, are we in, the first week or so of this quote-unquote spike in the beginning of August, it was like, oh, this is probably just another one of these spikes where it goes up for like 24 hours and goes back down. But now, seeing as it's been an extended situation, this is more comparable to some different periods in time. Let's take a look back for a second. And looks like my screens are running very slowly now. But it looks like we are in an extended area of volatility right now. And once again, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and that should be obvious to most people. And I guess my charts are going to fight with me today, unfortunately. And that's weird because I did just reboot the computer a couple minutes ago. But anyway, the point being that we appear to have volatility. Volatility appears to be here to stay for a while. It seems like it's not going anywhere for the time being. And I remember back in the summer of 2017 when VIX goes to 14 and it's immediate. As soon as it goes to 14, you better get in and sell something because it's going right back down. It's going right back down to 10. Well, that's not the case at all now. Now it's like this thing, it's like pulling teeth to get it to go below 20. And but the way I really like to think about it is in terms of historical or realized volatility. And what do I mean by that? I mean, as we look back, as the days go by, the trading days go by, we can look back and say, wow, yesterday was very volatile. Yesterday, the SPX had a range of 50 points or 30 points or whatnot. And people have made the point that the realized volatility was higher than the VIX over the last little period of time. But when we have days like the last 3 days where there's not a whole lot going on, that is going to change the numbers, the averages. If you have one day that's really whipping around and then you have 3 days that nothing happens, that one day of whipping around can really raise the average realized volatility. However, you put more and more days together of not that whole much going on, and all of a sudden the realized volatility numbers start to drop. And thus, we don't need the market to rally from here for VIX to come in. We just need stuff to stop moving around like crazy. And it appears that maybe that's happening a little bit. People get tired of chasing futures up and down the charts. They can get into it for a few days, or maybe you have a big down day or a big up day. But after a few days of increased volatility, people just kind of get fatigued, and stuff stops moving as much as it was. And it looks like I'm going to be fighting with my charts here today, folks. So I don't want to spend too much time doing that because it's just, I know your time is valuable and it's going to waste it. Let me just try one more time to see if I can get the VIX up here on a year chart and see if this is going to work for us. Yeah, it's very strange because, as I said, I've rebooted and tried to fix this situation. Okay, so here is looks like a half a year VIX chart. Let's see if we can get the year chart going here. And let me get out of the way. All right, so that's not what I want either. So we can see that we're in a heightened area of volatility here. You know, we see this big spike here at the end of last year and then kind of just rode down. This was a great time to be short. You know, all these days here between the end of December and April, a lot of those were just kind of the days between when short vol trade just is you're just collecting a little money here and there. You get a little blip up and then it's right back down again. Then we had this big pop in May. We get to July, August. We get the pop at the beginning of August. And ever since then, it's like sideways action. We haven't bested that first big pop in August. And I think that is somewhat significant. But we don't seem to be going back to those levels below 16. And in fact, we've only hit 16 once in that period. So it's really a little bit of a quagmire, and it kind of throws off those perma-short vol strategies. Remember back in 2017, we had people coming in and saying, all right, well, and I will name the guy's name who was writing a book and saying, oh, it's so easy. Inaware. You guys remember Inaware maybe if you're from StockTwits. And you know, the strategy became, all right, you have your core short of, 1,000 shares of UVXY or TVIX, and then you add to it as we get little dips and spikes, that sort of thing. That got blown out of the water with Vomageddon, of course, and we know that it's just not as simple as well, not always as setting it and forgetting it. However, there is, we know that in the end, this is going to make lower lows. UVXY is going to make lower lows at some point. Now, there's been a lot of concern about the China situation and the tariffs and all that. But for people who follow the market for a while, you know that this stuff could just all of a sudden sort of dissipate and market moves on to something else or just doesn't seem like a big deal anymore. Either way, things calm down. So it's hard to keep in this like heightened state of volatility for too long. And although people will say that like the average of all-time volatility is like 22, I would submit to you that there aren't that many people that want to buy a 20 vol in the market and hold it for long periods of time at this juncture. So here we have it. It was a waiting game this morning to see for this thing to crack. But that being said, although volatility didn't appear to want to come in, it wasn't like we were really, really inverted. Spot was very close to the front month futures. In fact, things have been very, very flat. And so that allowed for us to just kind of pop right back into a contango situation almost immediately when the chart did start to crack. Once E-minis got up about 20, things did start to crack. And here we have right now what we look like. And you can see right back in contango, it's very minor. It doesn't account for much, but right back in contango, it's showing almost 1% contango right now. People were asking yesterday about this December, and I'll just say once again, this is like a new thing. They did it a little bit last year, but it seems exaggerated this year a little bit. But once again, stuff is pretty flat, but they do discount December a little bit when setting up this curve. Now, remember, people are needing to roll every day and essentially buy these OCC futures and sell the SEP. And so the people that are taking the other side of that trade want to put the stuff back in contango so that they can have just a little bit of running room for themselves. And so you see that that is going to situate itself back in contango pretty quickly. Remember yesterday I was tweeting out that this structure will try to get itself in contango. Even though spot isn't below most of the futures, it's still arranging itself in contango for the first 2 months, and that's fairly typical of this chart. We will see where we go from here. We're kind of in the middle of a trading range, and this will be no surprise to all you folks who I know are astute market watchers. We are inside a range, and until we bust out of that range, that is where we are. Now, if we look here, this is a year chart, and my thing is going crazy again. Let's try that again. Okay, so you can see it's kind of a tight range that we're in here, and the question is do we roll over and go lower, or do we move higher? And it appears to want to go sideways right now. And when you look at this chart, it's like, well, what should the volatility be? It's very hard to say. It was really amazing, though, this morning when you'd see the E-minis go just slightly negative and the VIX popped a whole point. E-minis went down like 2 or 3 points and the VIX popped a whole point. So it's very sensitive to a move to the downside. I mean, if we were to go negative today in the E-minis, we're up 18 right now, but if we were to go negative, I feel like the VIX would skyrocket. So it really feels like there is more upside risk here in the VIX. Now, that being said, the VIX can pop, but it's not going to pop that much. It feels like it's very easy for this VIX to pop up till 21, maybe 22. Getting past 24 would be harder, though. And, now that we're in an elevated spot in the VIX, the risk of like a 50% up move in UVXY or in TVIX is lessened. It's certainly lessened than from the risk of a huge move in these ETPs really occurs when the vol is in the basement, when we're down like below 10 in the VIX and there's sort of a coiled spring. Once we're up around 20 here, it's going to be hard to get a huge spike to the upside from here because we're already elevated. So there's just not the potential to really pop things huge from here. Because I think part of the reason is that nobody really wants to buy a 40 vol in the futures. And if they do, it's only for a couple seconds. Then they're looking to get back out of them. So that's, I don't know if that helps you in your trading, but that's kind of where we are right now. I saw somebody talking about how, the cannabis stocks are popping today. They're back up. And I was like, well, not really. I mean, look at CGC's performance. I mean, maybe they popped up a little bit, but they've gotten crushed. These cannabis stocks have gotten crushed. And, it's funny. I work in catering as my other side job. You talk to these chefs who are cool, like stoner guys, and they're like, hey, what about the MJ stocks? I think I'm going to buy one of those because it's cool if you're a stoner to talk about the stock market and MJ stocks. However, anybody who's bought any of these stocks in the last year has probably gotten crushed. Look at this canopy growth here. It just don't look good. And there's a lot of headwinds in this industry. The biggest one to me is just that, this can become a commodity, and the more it gets legalized and the more players come into the market, the lower the price of this commodity can go. It's not like the price is set at some high price. It cost more before because it was illegal. It was risky to purchase. It was risky to grow. As that risk goes away, this becomes more of a commodity, like staples or toothpicks or something, and it becomes less profitable, less sexy. It's going to have tighter margins, and the huge excitement over this stuff is gone because people have gotten punched in the mouth on these. Look at ACB here, punched in the mouth. The other ones that I was following, MNK, which is a company. MNK is I believe, Irish company that is embroiled in the whole opioid crisis stuff. You don't want to be an opioid company that the government's got its eyes on. Look at this thing. It's down to 355 now, and this is one that I'm proud every day that I don't own. After going down the drain, down the toilet, basically, with Sun Edison, I've learned my lesson to not try to get a bounce on these kind of issues. Thing is, as a company, they put up their stock as collateral for loans, and when your stock goes from $30 to $3, all of a sudden you don't have much collateral left, and you don't have much leverage, and people are kind of like, they don't really want to pick up the phone when you're asking for more money. So very hard. It looks like M&K in a death spiral right now. All right, so let's go to the chat really quickly, and maybe there is nobody in chat, but I just want to check it. Say hi to everybody out there. I've become more active. I don't know if you noticed, but I've become more active on Twitter, so please check out the tweets. Hi, Al. What's going on? I will maintain that legalization will cause the price to go up. So far, I'm right. The price of the product, not the stock. Okay, yeah, we'll have to see if it does end up going up as far as prices go. I don't know. It's like I quit. I got sober 10 years ago as a kid in high school and college. It was like the dream, like legalize it, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, all that stuff. And then, of course, I get sober and they do legalize it. So it's a little anticlimactic for me, but I do understand the excitement around the product. All right, so here we are in the VIX, 955. We're slightly in contango. The question is, where do we go from here? And my best guess is that we stay somewhere around here, but that the futures arrange themselves so that we are in contango, and this stuff gets in a situation where we're back into like a 4 or 5% contango, even if the baseline VIX price is higher than it has been in a little while. I feel that that this 19 could become the new normal, but these futures are going to arrange themselves into contango, and UVXY is going to start to move lower again. I know it's been kind of a tough ride, I have to say. I start publishing my P&L, and I set up this position for everybody to watch and track, and we go into a period of huge volatility, but that's okay. I mean, it can be instructive as to what's going on. So let's talk about the position for a second. I do, it's been losing money. I've lost money a couple days in a row. I currently have a pretty short-term position on. Let's take a look. I'm long put spreads basically, and we're just going to have to see what happens. But certainly not a great time to start a short vol position as we just keep ripping to the upside and to the upside. And my advice to everybody, once again, is to just keep your duration of when stuff expires out as far as possible. If you do want to play the bullseye play, then that is a good idea too. Keeping decay on your side is good. And you're going to watch, and what's going to happen is what always happens. When people turn away and stop looking at the market for a while, and politically everybody goes on to something else, and the market kind of falls out of the news, that's when these products start to decay and just slowly move lower. It's not a super exciting thing, making money in the VIX. It's something that just kind of happens over time. You put your positions on, you hang out, and it starts to happen. And but you don't want to be in a situation where like you've rode up a losing position and then you take it off and then stuff goes back down again. At least in my opinion. We see this stuff start to decay, and we will take out the lows. Remember, the lows are way down in the 20s for UVXY. We will take out those lows again. It's just a question of when that happens. Let me try to fight this one more time to try to see if I can get these charts to come up. Meanwhile, in the news, I've been watching this. I don't know if you guys watch this H3H3 Productions. These guys are great. Ethan Klein and company. You should check out them. They're pretty cool. So yeah, Steve Sears. These are some of the guys I follow on Twitter. Steve Sears, Jim Carroll, Pat Hennessy, Michael Listman, Matt Thompson, SCHE Plick. I don't know how you say his name, but he's a big guy from Stock Twits. Ooh, Todd Snyder, another big Stock Twits guy. Hey, what's up, buddy? Balance of Trade. We haven't talked with the Balance of Trade lately. We should probably have him come on again soon. And then I check every day just on what is trending on Twitter. I know it might seem kind of a little bit too much of a millennial thing to do, but I like to see what's trending on Twitter. And today I found this. I don't know if you guys have seen this article. Chevy Chase Dog Park divides the rich. And it talks about this dog park in Chevy Chase where Jerome Powell lives. It's not going to show me. It's going to do this ad stuff. But yeah, every day I kind of go through all these, what's trending on Twitter. Remember, as a trader, we need to keep up on everything that's going on around us. You should be more informed than everybody else around you. And when people say, well, how come you know all that stuff about what's going on in current events? You say, well, because I'm a trader, and that's I need to know what's going on. So in the news today, Mattis came out in an article basically explaining why he left, and I guess people on the right would see it as sort of trashing Trump a little bit. Let's see what else is in the news here. St. Thomas Hurricane Advisory. Dorian becomes a hurricane near St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. What a beautiful place. I went there in college. I did this thing called air hitch where they don't tell you where you're going on vacation until like the day before. You just pay some money and then you have to arrive at the airport and then they tell you right then where you're going. So they said, you're going somewhere in the Caribbean, but we're not telling you where until right before. And I found out right before it was St. Thomas. My buddy and I arrived there with two ladies that we convinced to go with us, and we had basically no money. So my buddy wired some money to us, wired us $1,000, and we were off to St. Thomas. So beautiful place, U.S. Virgin Islands. The president's been making some comments about in the news about Puerto Rico today. Let's take a look at Drudge Report and see what's going on over there. I do check out Drudge Report every day. As most people who follow me know, I'm more of a liberal than a conservative, but I do like to check out Drudge Report, which could be seen as definitely a conservative aggregator, as we say. 30-year rate under 2%. Rich stop spending. Buffett hoards cash. So they've had this one article on here for like a week saying that like the market's definitely going lower. And I like seeing articles. The more articles that say the market is definitely going lower, I always see that as a bullish thing. I like to see tons of articles saying, be fearful, get your money out of the market. Stuff is going lower. I think that stuff definitely is a bullish indicator the more stuff we see. And it seems to have fallen off. Shock poll. Every major Dem beats Trump by at least 9. Yeah, but we know what happened last time the poll said the Dems were going to beat Trump, didn't we? It didn't actually happen. So I think these pollsters are not really believed as much as they used to be. Police gain access to private surveillance video from Amazon doorbell. Oh, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about. I don't know if you've been following this story, but China has this social credit system now in the country, and what it is they kind of give a rating to each citizen so that you're kind of tracked onto like how many traffic tickets you have, if you've been surfing bad websites, if you're in any sort of trouble with the government, and they're keeping track and giving everybody a social score, and they have a sort of a blacklist and a whitelist. And it's pretty scary for people when you combine face recognition software with social scoring. All of a sudden, you're categorizing people and keeping track of them. And it's kind of a scary thing. I guess you can go on to, let me see if I can find the link here, but you can go on to a website in China and find out what your social score is currently if you're Chinese. And it's a little bit scary. When we think back, you think of like, oh, well, it's a new thing, U.S. versus China. If you think back, a lot of Chinese people helped build the railroads when, way back when. I don't know if you ever guys watched that show back in the 70s, if you're old enough to remember, Kung Fu with David Carradine. But Chinese were part of the Old West in the U.S., and our relationship with China has been there since the beginning. We say, oh, this is a new thing, but it really is not. If you want to learn more about China, I do have to recommend this guy, and I would love to have him on the show. I don't think he's interested in talking with me because he's a way bigger YouTuber than me, but Serpentenza. It's like serpent, and they wouldn't say Z, they'd say Z or something in British. This guy's website, really, really cool. All kinds of stuff about what it's really like to be on the ground in China and what it's like to live there. And here we have Naomi Wu, sexy cyborg. I don't know if you know about her, but she's a pioneer, somebody you should support. And so check out these Serpentenza to learn what it's actually like living in China. And he also has another channel where he and his buddy basically they ride motorcycles around China and they talk about different stuff as they're riding their motorcycles around China. And let me see if I can get the link for it here. Okay. Documentary links. Anyways, they have another channel where they ride around China on motorcycles and they talk about everything that's going on in different aspects of like dating or whatnot with China. So, you know, you can be a patriotic American, but you can still learn about other countries, and I would recommend doing that. All right, so here we have it right now. E-mini's up 21. The VIX down 90 cents or 88 now, but miraculously it's actually down in the day. It seems like pulling teeth to get this thing to go lower, but the flip side of that is it hasn't moved higher or taken out the high. So we are in a range in the VIX, we're in a range in UVXY. The good news for us is we don't need the market to break out of its funk to the upside for UVXY to come in. We just need it to not go down anymore. We can go sideways for a while and volatility will stabilize to the point where we can exploit the effects of contango and beta drift to make money in UVXY. So we have that advantage over people who are just long the market. We don't need the market to go up to make money. We just need it to not go down. So, UVXY down 47 cents on the day. It feels like a huge victory because things have been, just every day, more spikes in volatility. However, look at the chart in UVXY. Let me just remind you once again what the chart looks like here. Even though if you've just been watching for the last month, it feels like this thing just keeps popping up and it's great to take a ride to the upside. Look at the chart here. If we look at a little closer up chart, and once again, my charts aren't working very well today. If we look at a closer up chart, it seems like all sideways action. But look, folks, this is going to go lower at some point coming up soon. And if you've gotten hurt on the way up, like I have, I would hold on to your position on the way down so that you can benefit on the way down. And my charts are not cooperating with me today at all. So, yeah, there we have it. We had, this last couple sessions, look at this. Just up, sideways up. That is not a good looking chart for somebody who's short something. It just isn't. However, we know that we have time on our side here, and that this will ultimately go lower. So hang in there with me, folks, and we're going to make some good money moving forward. All right, thanks for watching. Check back with me tomorrow. I am pretty busy tomorrow, but I will be coming on sometime around noon for the show. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them. Looking to get some more interviews coming up very shortly on the show. And I'm also, I've been experimenting with, I was experimenting actually with broadcasting the show while playing some different video games. I am having some computer issues with getting it right. So I might kind of blend a live show with some pre-recorded segments. I think that might be the easier way to do it. The two video games I play right now are Star Citizen and City Skylines. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those two games. But try to keep you entertained as we are patient and we set it and forget it. Just by watching my position over a little time, you can tell that I have struggles with being patient at times. And I think it's slightly affected by the fact that I'm doing a show about this position every day. Other positions I have that I'm not talking about or broadcasting or showing publicly, I seem to do a little bit better job with than this one right now because I don't know, I keep wanting to show people different strategies and different ways of doing things. So don't do what I do, do what I say. No, I'm just kidding. And as we talk, UVXY once again down about 85 cents on the day. We'll see if we move lower from here. Remember, for beta drift, it's great if we can have one up day like yesterday and then a down day right after it. That's going to help us with the drift. If you missed the show yesterday, and it looks like we are about to close here, folks. The market is about to close. We have about 4 minutes left. We haven't really talked about the market close with UVXY. As you probably know, the options stay open for 15 minutes longer in UVXY than in a typical equity. And now UVXY is not the only vehicle that has that, but I would recommend that you do not trade after 4 o'clock because stuff gets so wide. I mean, you can put bids and offers in, but you're probably not going to get filled. And I certainly wouldn't mess with stuff like putting stuff mid-market unless you are sure that you are valuing stuff in a way that you're confident about. Because what happens is stuff gets widened way out, and it's very hard to tell if you don't know ahead of time. It's very hard to trade because everything is very, very wide from 4 to 4:15. Now, you still can execute during that time period, but stuff is very, very wide. Now, this causes several problems, in my opinion, having this happen this way. The futures don't stop until sometime after 4:15, and a lot of times you do get action between 4 and 4:15. That's during that 15-minute time period is when XIV ceased to exist. It was during that 15 minutes between 4 and 4:15. So it can be a volatile time. It's very hard to get anything done. A lot of times UVXY does move though during that period, and our computers and our data feeds and our data services have a hard time dealing with this period. A lot of times you're going to see like one VIX future got marked at 4 o'clock, another one got marked at 4:15, some options got marked. The UVXY underlying gets marked at 4 o'clock, some of the options get marked at 4:15. It can be a whole big quagmire of stuff that happens when between in that period from 4 to 4:15. But the good news is that it's all really smoke and mirrors, because once they open stuff up the next day, everything is back in line again. So if you're trading UVXY for any significant amount of time, you'll notice that when they widen stuff out, it will change your P&L. I'm just going to put my P&L up here so that we can watch it as I talk right now as we go into the after 4 o'clock session. You'll see it's going to bounce all over the place. So you should be comfortable with that happening and know that it's going to come back. It's just the fact that these options get widened out. So we're seeing, it looks like UVXY got to the lowest point it has all day in the last couple minutes. We'll see if volatility actually really does come in here anymore. But E-mini is basically just staying right where they were all day. We've got about 40 seconds left until the market closes right now. And looks like my computer almost looks frozen. It doesn't seem to be moving very much here. Okay, yeah, so I see my P&L just popped by $1,000. Be used to that happening. As a market maker, your P&L moves way more even. The more positions you have, the more you're going to see your positions move on marks every day. It's just a normal thing of being an options trader. So don't be shocked or dismayed when you see your P&L moving around. And you can go and figure it out. You can actually go and look at each option that you have a position in and see what price it got marked at, and you can figure it out. So if you get worried about that sort of thing, you can go and figure it out. All right, so there's the closing bell, folks. Let's see if we can take a look just at some options markets in UVXY, and you'll see that stuff is really widened out after the close. So here we've got like next week expiration. This calls 750 bid at 1145. Nice market, huh? Hey, I can be a market maker in that kind of market. 750 bid at the 24 call, 750 bid. So what would that be? What would parity be if it's a 24 calls? What is parity on the 24 calls right now? Anybody? Well, let's see. If you take 24 and you subtract the price of the underlying, let's call the underlying 33.88. You subtract 24 from 33.88. Now it's almost, let's make the math easier for you folks. Let's say UVXY is 34. Okay, the 24 calls, what's parity on the 24 calls if UVXY is 34? Well, it's $10, right? So if you can buy the calls for $7.50, then you're getting to buy them very much underwater, right? So these markets are ridiculous. And anybody would be willing to buy, if I could buy the 24 call for $7.50 and then sell UVXY for 24, you'd be locking in $2.50, $250, that is, each time you do it. Of course, UVXY is hard to borrow. You can't sell stock against it, but you could sell something else against it. And the point still being that these markets are super, super wide. So you want to be very careful trading in the last 15 minutes. In fact, I wouldn't leave anything for then, especially like on expiration. I'd be very careful. All right, so I've taken up enough of your time today, folks. Let's see, we're on 40 minutes, and there we go. I guess we have to call it a successful day. The VIX now down over a point, UVXY down over a point, and we were moving on to the next session. Thanks for watching today, folks, and I will see you again tomorrow on the Short Vol Show Live. Until then.